Any nays or abstentions? Well, welcome to the February 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Education. I see our seats are more full than they usually are, with some people that look like they can run very, very fast and for great distances. So thank you for coming out and for your communications over the last few days and weeks. We look forward to hearing from you further. Haven't prepared remarks. I intended to today, but my day got away from me. So I'll be brief. I know people have asked about the status of the superintendent search, and we are working with our search consultant that we utilized the last time. It's a company by the name of HYA. For the board members, if you haven't yet already, please report back to HYA about the dates that you'd be available for an interview. They want to interview all of the board members to get a sense as to what we're looking for in a permanent superintendent candidate. The next sort of big item that is on our agenda for the next couple of months is the budget. The board hasn't seen yet a budget that's been proposed by administration, and there's going to be a budget workshop between now and our next regularly scheduled board meeting. So sometime in either late February or early March, we'll have a budget workshop where we will discuss budget priorities and take a deeper dive into the numbers. So keep an eye out for some proposed dates for the budget workshop. This is Black History Month, and I wanted to highlight one teacher in particular in Morristown. I went to school here, and I thought it would be nice to highlight. I had many wonderful teachers, many wonderful Black teachers, but there was one in particular that came to mind when I started thinking about Black History Month and what that means specifically to our schools. And some of you may have had her that went to school here, but it was Miss Ruby Jean Marshall, was the 7th grade science teacher here that was a legend by any stretch. She, there was this famous leaf project that everybody had to do in the fall where you'd collect leaves and identify the leaves from around town. And it was sort of one of those rites of passage if you ever had Mrs. Marshall. Did anybody have her up here? Okay. A quiz. Do you remember her famous sort of 4-word phrase that she would say to her classes? What was it?
You're no Mark Villanueva.
After that, she would say, "Love your hearts."
I love your hearts. Yeah. And, she could be tough at times, but very fair. And believe it or not, I tended to get in some trouble at times. And I remember distinctly during one of the many detentions I served with her, she had given me a lecture on my flaws and my behavior. And, as a typical 12 or 13-year-old, I wasn't too happy to hear it. And sort of, as I was leaving the detention, was sort of stomping out of the room. And I remember, I can't remember exactly what it was that I did that I got in trouble for, but I do remember her stopping me, turning me around and saying, "But I love your heart." And, you could tell that she meant it. And so she had such an impact on students, certainly on me, and on hundreds, if not thousands of students in this district. I think she worked here from 1971 to 2005. And I think she was a Morristown resident. Okay, thank you. And so she was just wonderful, I think. And I wanted to mention her, particularly this month, as part of our history. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2015, I believe. But I wanted to pay homage to Miss Marshall. So with that, I will pass the microphone off to Mr. Bollendorf for any superintendent comments.
Thank you, Mark. That was actually quite refreshing to hear comments of that level about a teacher in the district.
So thank you for taking the time to bring her to life for all of us. We're going to just flip things around a little bit before my update. And I do want to get right into Karen Benton and her presentation on the Smart Strong results. So our Director of Curriculum, Karen Benton, I turn it over to you at this point. Thanks.
Good evening. Here. All right. So tonight we are going to present our Start Strong assessment results from the fall of 2020. And if you remember from last year when I gave this presentation, this was our first year last year giving the test as we were returning to full in-person learning. At that time, the NJDOE had told districts that this would be a one-time assessment that was meant to assess where students were as we were returning to full in-person learning, as well as to meet the requirement for the previous year during the pandemic when we were not able to do our typical end of the year annual assessment, the NJSLA. In June of 2022, districts were told that we would administer the Start Strong again, along with the NJSLA and our high school graduation proficiency exam. So we did administer that this fall, and we will again administer the NJSLA as well as the high school proficiency exam. In addition to that, I will just remind everyone that the district also uses several other data points, assessment data points, including our MAP testing that we administer 2 to 3 times a year for different across grades K through 8th grade. We midterm and final exam data that we have, our benchmark assessments such as running records over several different course levels. So we have several points of data that we use. And the other part of this presentation will go into highlighting some of the instructional supports that the district is providing for all of our students. So here you can see our overall performance in our Start Strong assessment. The categories for Start Strong are not typical of what we get for NJSLA. We really just get kind of 3 categories that all students fall into. So students are either in need of less support, some support in yellow, and then strong support in red. And so you can see for our overall performance in grades 4 through 12, which were our tested grades in ELA, math, and science, students in green are those that are in need of less support, students in yellow, some support, and then students in red are in strong support. We have been using this data as another source of information because at the time that we took this in the fall, students who were designated as in strong need of support as evidenced by their NJSLA data, course grade data from the previous year, as well as teacher benchmark and formative assessments had already been identified for either our reading and math support courses, as well as placement at the secondary level in courses that would provide them additional supports. So we kind of use this as kind of like a final data point that could help us to identify any students that we might have missed at that point. Because we did take this last year, this is a comparative slide to show where we were in 2021. And you can see that in ELA, in math, as well as in science, we've increased the number of students that are falling into the category of in need of less support needed. So our green has increased. If the state continues to administer this data, then we'll start to have, several years of data to be able to compare and have another data point to show how our students are improving and what additional instructional supports that we would need. So in the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about the results in each of the categories, and we're going to look at the disaggregated data across our different ethnic groups, as well as our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, our ESL students, and our IEP students. And we'll also talk about some of the different instructional supports that we're providing in each of these categories across the grade levels. Oops, sorry. All right. So here you can see our ELA scores by ethnicity. And again, we're using this as a data, another data point to tell the story that we have seen in our NJSLA data. So as I presented back in December, you can see that our Black and Hispanic students, which while it is a small percentage of our total population, if we look just at that category, we can see that they do not perform as well as some of their counterparts in other ethnic groups. This is our, sorry, there's a delay. Can you go back to the ELL slide, please? Thank you. All right. So one interesting point here, if you look at our current ELLs, and again, back in December, I talked about the fact that from 2017-18, we had 12 ELL students in district. In this current school year, we have 68 ELL students. So we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of ELL students. And one of the things that we're looking at is trying to get an understanding of how students are coming to us in terms of what has been their educational background. To that point, many of them we see are having disrupted learning where they have not been receiving continuous education consistently, especially throughout the pandemic years. So most of our students are coming to us at the emerging language level when we do our access scores. And so you see that, represented here because 70% of the students that are in current ELLs are in this category for strong support. And so we're looking for ways to address that, not only within our math, ELA, and science instruction, but also in terms of the ELL instruction that they are receiving. However, one interesting note is to look at students who are our former ELLs. So when students have progressed out of our ELL programming and are now in our general education courses and not receiving ESL supports, you can see that our students do very well. So we're doing a good job of preparing our ESL students when they stay with us and have the opportunity to graduate through, from our ESL programming. You can also see here with our special education population that these numbers are very similar to those that we saw when we looked at our disaggregated data for NJSLA. Can you go to the next one for me, please? Thank you. And then here, when we look at our socioeconomic status, again, we see that our economically disadvantaged students are disproportionately performing compared to their non-economically disadvantaged counterparts. And again, that's something that we see repeated in all of our data sets. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the instructional supports that we're getting. As a reminder, the Start Strong assessment only looks at a subset of our standards, whereas the NJSLA assessment that we take at the end of year looks at the entire set of standards for each grade level. So what I've highlighted for you here are the subset of standards that they look across. And for ELA, it really is just two categories of standards. There's reading literature and there's reading information. And these are progressive standards, meaning you'll see some of the same things as we go grade 4 through to grade 12, but these things are getting progressively harder and more rigorous in terms of the expectations of what students are going to do when they're looking, for instance, for details from a passage to support their answers and what would be expected to be evidenced in their writing at the different grade levels. If you can hit next. And so here you can see some of the supports that we have in place. If you can go back. So use of short constructed responses are a way for us to practice skills and for students to receive more immediate feedback from teachers. You can see that we have changed we adopted a new K-5 ELA curriculum where there's a greater use of informational text within our literature study. At the secondary level for English 1 and 4 at the high school, we're doing a course needs assessment with the anticipation that we're going to be rewriting those courses in the next year to 2 years. And so those are in some of the instructional supports. In terms of specific student supports, all students have access to 14th period tutorial with course teachers at the high school. Students are identified for what we call tier 2, level 2 courses at the high school, as well as there's peer tutoring provided through the counseling office and our Honor and Service Society, and after school tutoring for identified students. if we move on to our math results, go to the next slide. We see a similar trend here where our Black and Latino students are in more need of strong support than their counterparts. Go to the next one. And again, we see a similar trend with our current ELL students versus our former ELL students. So again, when our students are with us and are able to move through our ELL programming, we see great improvement in their language acquisition, which then translates into their ability to learn in their core content areas. Go to the next one. And then again, similarly for our socioeconomic status, we see the trend that our economically disadvantaged students are performing at a lower than their non-economically disadvantaged counterparts. Yes. So for our math standards, again, I'm not going to go through all of the different standards that are here, but if we talk about some of our instructional supports, hit next. Nope. Other direction. Yep. One of the things that our supervisor and the teachers in grades really K through 6, even though the test is only designed for 4 through 6, is we looked at grade level alignment. We created grade level alignment documents that have additional resources that teachers can use to provide reinforcement and practice in their lessons. And that's available to all students. We've also increased the availability of physical and virtual manipulatives that students are using, and they also will have access to these at home. And we have started an investigated math lesson with the math certified teacher, which they receive once every 8 days. Additionally, in grade 6 and through grade 12, there's now a professional learning focus on building thinking classrooms, which really thinks about small group collaboration and instruction that gives students the opportunity to do things like explain their answers, to use reasoning, and to model, which are some of the practice standards that are embedded within the math standards. Additionally, students are identified for math support, as well as after-school tutoring similarly to ELA. Thank you. In grades 7 and 8, you see a progression in these standards, as well as the inclusion of algebraic expressions, equations, and inequalities. Many of the supports that you see here are similar. If you click to the next one, as what we talked about for grades 4 through 6. And if you can go to 9 to 12. So at the high school level, the test is in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. You can go to the supports. And in addition to the course alignment and the focus on building thinking classrooms, students again have access to the level 2 course support, those students that are in need of stronger support, as well as peer tutoring and the after school tutoring. And we see the same things for Algebra 2. You can go 2 ahead. One more. And finally, the third area is science. For science, for the NJSLA, we only test in grades 5, 8, and 11. So the Start Strong assessment is only given for grades 4, see if I can get that right, no, 6, 9, and 12. And so again, similar trends to what we see for ELA and math for both ethnicity, and go to the next. For our ELL, because it is only 1 grade level, we actually have less than 10 students in each grade. Therefore, we do not receive data as it's identifiable. But if we look at our special education population, you can see that this is an area that, again, we are continuing to address within our instruction. And also by socioeconomic status. And so when we get to the supports, in all grades K through 5, as well as in 6 through 12, we are increasing the use of hands-on inquiry-based learning. And there is a specific focus on students constructing explanations and engaging in argument from evidence, which is one of the practice standards that actually overlaps between science, ELA, and math. And students are having opportunities to engage in claim evidence reasoning tasks, which includes writing. as well as modeling and developing arguments. And we see the same if you go to the next one in grades 6 through 12. Keep going. And then 9 through 12. That's it. Yep. Any questions on the board? Sorry.
It's like you or her or me. Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate the work that you do. And thanks for your presentation tonight. Just a few updates from my office. First of all, it's hard to believe I've been here a month, and it's really been great. It's kind of cool getting to know people's faces and names and getting around the district and see folks. I'm very much impressed with what I see as a very collaborative spirit that exists in this district between the administration, our staff, our board members, our supervisors, our support staff. There really is a generous spirit of collaboration with the same tact in mind to do the very best that we can for the kids, that we serve every single day. And it's really nice to be a part of that sort of culture. I wanted to commend Principal Brian Carter, who did a presentation today for the Office of Emergency Management locally. It's difficult and not fun work to focus on those things that need to be in place for those events that we all hope never happen. And he's built a really starting groundwork of a strong reunification plan. And that was presented today. We've made some real solid connections with the county level of Office of Emergency Management. And I think that there's some real room for growth and experience in terms of the things that we need to have in place here in Moorestown. But I wanted to commend Brian for the work he's doing as our district safety specialist. I do want to thank the Board of Ed too. After working here now for a month, the level of commitment that I see by board members with regards to the amount of time that they spend in committee meetings through the course of their day, how they're juggling their responsibilities as folks that have jobs and have families, and serving the district in the way that they do is really impressive and very commendable. And I think that they deserve a great sense of gratitude. A lot of people take for granted that these folks are volunteering in these roles and giving up a lot of their personal time, again, committed to making these schools great for our kids. I think it's wonderful. I want to thank Jeff Avery, who spent the entire weekend updating our district servers and making sure that we had the local or the most recent updates with regards to security. These things happen behind the scenes. You don't know that they happen, but to know that we have people dedicated to make sure that we're protected and that our technology is working in order is very, very much needed. So Jeff, thank you for doing that. Wanted to tell folks that next week there will be a presentation with regards to the work that the district's been doing for the past couple of years related to CCEIS and what it was that the district was identified in terms of disproportionality. I'm very impressed with the work that's happening so far, and I think that the board and the community will have a better sense of what that all means and what direction we're going in. So be sure to tune in at the March board meeting for that information. And lastly, a real positive note, congrats to our middle school wrestling team who won a thrilling 43-42 match over Williamstown. They won their first ever middle school South Jersey wrestling championship, and they were down 30-9 and came back to win. So we all need to celebrate great things like that happen for our kids. And I know that this is a shameless plug, but Cinderella is about to get underway with our spring musical. It promises, I think, to be a great show. It plays next weekend and the weekend after. And I would encourage you to take your kids and go see a wonderful, family entertainment event. So with that, I turn the meeting back to Mark.
Great. Thank you, Joe. It's great to hear an update on things that are going on behind the scenes, some that are not so much behind the scenes, but it's great to hear those updates as to what's going on in the district. So I appreciate it. Next, we will hear from our student board representatives, please.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucas McGill, and I'm your senior class Board of Ed liaison.
This evening, I have some updates on our upcoming senior trip and some information on Morristown High School's spring musical. So I'll start with the musical. MHS Theater is putting on Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. It's an original spin on a classic fairy tale, and I, for one, can't wait to see it. Performances are Friday the 24th at 7 p.m., Saturday the 25th at 7 p.m., Sunday the 26th at 2 p.m., Friday the 3rd at 7 p.m., and then one more time on Saturday the 4th at 7 p.m. You won't want to miss it. Now on to our next topic. We have the imminent Disney Parks / Universal Studios senior trip. The itinerary just came out last week, so it's all anybody's talking about. I'll give you a quick rundown of what we have in store. Saturday in the morning, we'll have a luggage check before leaving for the airport around 2:15. The last flight should be landing in Orlando around 8 in time for the pizza and ice cream party at 9. Sunday, we're taking a group photo in front of Hard Rock and we're park hopping between Universal and Islands of Adventure parks. On Monday, we have a choice between Magic Kingdom and Epcot. On Tuesday, it's between Volcano Bay and Universal Studios or Islands of Adventure. Wednesday, it's either Hollywood Studios or Animal Kingdom. And Thursday, our final day, will be in either Universal Studios or Islands of Adventure until it's time to go home. With flights leaving at around 9 and arriving at 11, both groups should arrive at the high school around 12:30, wrapping up an incredibly exciting week. Next Tuesday, the 28th, we have a parent-student meeting to go over all the previous information with the entire class. Thank you. That's all I have for you tonight. I'm going to hand it over to the junior class liaison.
Good evening, board and parents. I'm Jack Britton, your junior class liaison. And as many of you know, because it was reported last month, the Morristown High School hosted a love fair on Wednesday, January 18th. We got tons of organizations to come down to the cafeteria, set up a little table, and offer service hours or opportunities to anyone who stopped by. I personally stopped by and thought it was a very cool idea, and the turnout was one of the highest I have ever personally seen for a high school event. As a response to Love Fair, the student council talked about the idea of doing something at Brandywine Senior Care Center in Morristown to volunteer with the elderly. We tossed around the idea of making care packages and bringing them in to give to the elderly, in addition to talking, reading, walking, and or being present with the Brandywine residents. We are hoping to allocate 2 Sundays to have a solid mix of volunteers from all grade levels in student council and outside of student council to go for around an hour to an hour and a half. This is piggybacking off the idea of trying to present our students with more volunteer opportunities to give back to the community. And obviously, we hope this provides an adequate opportunity, and we think it's a great way to give back to the elders of our community and demonstrate a stronger purpose within our school and our community as a whole. Thank you, and I'll hand it off to our sophomore class liaison.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again. My name is Amin Kazmi, and I'm the sophomore class board liaison. As I'm sure a lot of you know, this year marks the 125th anniversary of Morristown High School, which is kind of a big milestone. And in remembrance of this milestone, the Council of the Advisors came up with an idea. We want to bring the graduates of the class of 1973 for their 50-year reunion and give them a tour of the school. As simple as that sounds, a lot has changed. The high school we are grateful for today is more than double the size of what the high school was 50 years ago, with numerous more hallways, a new gym, and an extended second floor. To give the alumni the best experience possible, we plan to research all the new additions to the school through the old yearbooks, original plans, and ensure all the information we give out is accurate. We will invite the alumni, and all who wish to show up will come on the first Saturday of June, and the council and its advisors will show them how amazing the school is today. We hope to make this a new tradition of the high school, and we hope that you all share that feeling. Thank you all for listening. I'll now pass it to freshman class liaison, Dom.
Good evening, everyone. I'm freshman class liaison Don Warman. Last week was just about the ending point for most winter sports, but our high school is doing very well and most teams are still going. The team wrestling season was over last week, but a few individual wrestlers are still looking to win at states and are in the regional part of their bracket right now. Our girls swimming team ended their season with a loss in the playoffs, and the boys swimming team is still going after their state sectional win last Friday, and they have a meet tomorrow to look to win states. Finally, both boys and basketball teams are in the playoffs ranked as the number 4 seed in Group 3 playoffs, and both have a game tomorrow night as they look to advance for the playoffs. Thank you for having me here tonight, and have a great night.
As always, thank you, gentlemen. Those are great updates, and it's up to you. You feel free to stay or take off, or whatever you guys want to do. But thanks again. No surprise. Okay, next we have our board committee reports, and we will start first with communications. Jill?
So I don't have a big report because our next communications committee meeting is actually tomorrow morning, bright and early at 7:45 a.m. But for the committee, heads up that Joe Bollendorf and I had a chance to meet today with Lori Perlow, who was the communications consultant that was engaged by the district about a year and a half ago to provide us with that strategic support on developing and evolving our approach to communications. We had a good meeting and we'll provide you with a more thorough update tomorrow so we can talk about next steps.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Jill? All right, moving on. Lauren, for curriculum.
Sure. Curriculum met February 9th, 7:45 is a hybrid meeting. Dr. Benton, Joe Bollendorf, Dr. Tate, Mick Weeks, Cheryl Makopoulos, Danielle Miller, and myself were in attendance. We began the meeting with information sharing of the proposed calendar that's on tonight's agenda to review. We also then were given an update. I know Mr. Bollendorf mentioned that we were going to hear the presentation to the full board and public next month, but we were given an update in committee on the CCEIS expenditures. An update was given by Karen and Dave as the district continues to look for ways to how to spend the funds. And also the district will continue to focus on professional development, building level programs, and family engagement. And we look forward to the March presentation. There was a discussion then about world language programming. Karen presented a plan because one of the Latin teachers is retiring, and really kind of looking forward for how to meet that need as Latin remains a popular program within the district. And so efforts are being made to continue that program in the midst of teacher shortages and challenges with hiring. So a hiring plan was presented and a communication timeline was given, and we anticipate decisions to be made by the end of this school year. And then lastly, we discussed a little bit of an overview of Karen's presentation today for the fall 2022 Start Strong presentation that she just gave. Any questions?
All right, thanks, Lauren. Next is finance and operations. Mick.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, even though we had a 3-hour meeting, I'll try to keep this update brief. So starting off with things that we were recommending to the larger board for action. EDC tuition was the first thing we discussed. The increase on that is about 2 to 4%, which is in keeping with previous practice, usually followed by a year where we keep costs flat. The increase is being primarily driven by the minimum wage increase, needing to pay higher wages. Also, I think we have on this agenda later tonight something related to this, the Emergent Capital Needs Grant. It's a continuation of some COVID funding. We're going to use it to help retrofit some windows at the upper elementary school that haven't ever really worked right. I know some people in here have probably had some experience with those windows. So there's a retrofit kit that will help make them work better while we get the rest of the useful life out of them, which will hopefully be many more years, so that we don't have to replace those. Also mentioned by Ms. Romano, the 23-24 calendar, we talked about that. The one wonderful thing, it's been something that we've been asked about a lot, and the administration was great to work on this, to be able to add some additional holidays, Muslim holidays, Eid, and then also adding Diwali along with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which we've had for years. Being able to fit those into the calendar. For payroll, James informed us of some items. We're bringing in, we have a new assistant coming to your office, but before they get here, we need some help, and have a retired business administrator coming in to help fix up some things, clean up some things, and then some overtime hours for the existing bookkeeper to help clean up things so that when the new payroll person comes in, everything will be in a good place for them. We also talked about donations that were received, a garden sign provided by the MEA. Thank you for that at Roberts. Dick's Sporting Goods is sponsoring gift cards to help students in the SLE program get fishing licenses. And then there were some donations primarily led by the Morristown Education Foundation, but also with others contributing for backdrops, having a red carpet experience and small giveaways at the science fair coming up. So recommend that the board accept all those donations. And then on the final recommendation was a transportation jointure, an agreement with Lenape Regional High School District to add 2 special ed students to existing Lenape routes. That really helps with the transportation challenges we have, the shortages that are out there. So being able to transport those students, working with Lenape Regional School District is really beneficial for us. So those were all the recommendations. We talked about the, also alluded to before, the CCI-EIS update, talking about how that's proceeding and that the administration is targeting next month to have a public presentation about that. Talked about the upcoming bids and RFPs. Grounds, a bid for grounds is coming up. And then also we have a RFP out for a cybersecurity audit. Let's see, ESF, we're working with them to renegotiate their contract, to have them use our facility. Also looking to help a charter school in Willingboro, potentially helping them to provide their lunch service, which could also help us improve our lunch service by having more resources here that are afforded by what we would get out of that contract to help us improve our lunch program, which would be a great win-win. Let's see, we talked about the 23-24 budget update. It was already mentioned that we're going to have a special session about the budget coming up next month. Then generally conversations about transportation, talking about what we need to do to maybe increase pay rates to compete with the surrounding area to stay competitive and be able to hire people to handle our busing needs. And then also just some things related to the upcoming budget conversation. Looking at the healthcare costs, we're starting to get that information. We'll have that information prior to the budget meeting, hopefully. Let's see. And then some conversations about helping or seeing if we can do things in the budget, like looking at class sizes, especially in the lower grades. And then let's see, potentially adding other F&O meetings, because 3-hour meetings are not necessarily compatible with everybody's schedule. So potentially meeting more than once a month. So that was the summary of what we covered at the F&O meeting. So quite the gala it was. Any questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Claudine. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thank you. Policy.
Policy Committee. So we met on February 10th, and it was me, Melissa Burns, Jill Fellows-Macaluso, and Mark Villanueva. From the administration, we had Mr. Bollendorf, Dr. Benton, Dr. Tate, and Mr. Airy. So my minutes are broken up into 2 sections, mostly of like items that we discussed, and then you'll see first reading and second reading policies that we're voting on tonight. So items for discussion, we continue to have policy 9190 in working groups, trying to figure out how we can rewrite these to kind of reflect the actual practices in the district. And those have to do with not only home and school, but parent organizations, boosters, and otherwise. So that's a work in progress for many years, but we're going to get it done. I also thought it was helpful, since we have a lot of new members, that I asked Dr. Benton to share the process in which he identifies policies that we need to discuss and adopt from Strauss-Esme. And she also gave us an update on an internal audit of existing board policies that she had begun with our previous superintendent, just some duplicative and overlapping and unnecessary policies. So that's good to clear those out. We also looked at the calendar as well for 2023-24. So policies on first reading tonight, what you're going to see is policy 3125, which is employment of teaching staff. It's an amendment to a mandatory policy that's already in existence. We discussed this at the last meeting, that it was coming. So this is reflecting the need to reimburse fingerprinting and sub-certification costs for non-regular limited employees who receive stipends under a certain dollar threshold. And we're marking that as 750 or less. The next one on first reading is policy number 143.2. That's the one that has to do with, it's a mandatory policy from the state. They want us to have student representation on the board. We've determined that our existing policy and having our 4 reps would satisfy this. So we're already in compliance. The next one is 5722, which is also a mandatory policy from the state on student journalism. And it just provides that we have a board policy that reflects student freedom of information, expression in any school-sponsored media. Policy number 5460 has to do with mandatory requirements for high school graduation. We just simply adopted language that was updated in a regulation. And I think if anyone has any specific questions, I would probably defer that to Karen, Dr. Benton, on what that involves. And policies on second reading, which passed last meeting, did you need me? Was the policy number 163, which is about quorum, when we don't have quorum for, if we don't have quorum for a reason of conflict. And we have decided to put a policy that was approved on first reading in January on hold. That has to do with policy 1511, which is our Board of Education website accessibility policy. Mr. Airy has kind of needed us to flesh through some changes that might be needed to be made. We didn't want to adopt a policy that we weren't going to be able to comply with. So we'll probably have that on the next month's agenda. Any questions?
Great. Thank you, Claudine. Are there any updates for off-board committees?
I'm new to this. This is where I would give the update on More Arts.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So I am the new board liaison for More Arts, and I wanted to give a brief update. It's been mentioned a number of times that the musical season has begun, and shout out that the More Arts is going to be selling concessions to support its grants and scholarship programs, which is great opportunity for graduating seniors. The scholarship applications are going to be up on their portal very soon. And it's for any students that are involved in the arts in any form. A important footnote is that the applicants don't have to be majoring in the arts moving forward in the next chapter of their life. And last but not least, this wonderful program, Art About Town, which has elementary school artwork on display at 9 local businesses. Quickly, the Math Accelerator, Corollo's, Health Haven, Luna de Sol, Akira, Pie Lady, Moorestown Hardware, Passarello's, and the library. So I think it's great if folks can stop by and take a look. That's it.
Great. Any other off-board committee reports?
Sure, Mark. Share some information. I attended I'm the liaison now, I guess, for the Rec Advisory Committee, Morristown Rec Advisory Committee. And they primarily spoke about a new wiffle ball / softball field that's going to be installed at Memorial Field in memory of Jack Hannon, one of our students who lost his life a few years ago, a year ago. That's right, this past August. Thank you, Melissa. And so they are having a fundraiser, a golf outing on May 22nd, and expect the field to be dedicated sometime later this spring. So just wanted to share that with the board.
I just have a quick speak update. The meeting this month is actually this Thursday. It's at 6 p.m. and it is at the Star Center, right at the high school. And there will be a guest speaker, Diana Sever from Pasternak Appel. And I'm sure I just butchered all of those names. And so I apologize. It's at 6 p.m. She'll be talking about IEPs, 504 plans, and parents' rights in terms of special education. So I would encourage anyone who has a student with any kind of special need to come on out. It'll be a very informative presentation.
Great, thank you. Any others?
Hi, I had the pleasure of attending the first robotics competition at the UES last month, and I'd like to personally recognize Miss Bennett and Mr. Peltier, the teachers and coaches of the high school Combustible Lemons first robotics team, as well as professional mentor Chris Schaefer for the dedication to the children, to the program, and to STEM. The world of robotics is not only technically challenging, but it requires substantial funding, which is primarily met through fundraising. Through the tireless efforts of the teachers, the coaches, and the mentors, as well as parents, staff, and volunteers, this event was a huge success, and it helped secure funding for the high school team. It also created a competitive yet fun environment for our kids and those in neighboring districts. It was well attended, and the kids' creativity, problem solving, camaraderie, and teamwork was at the forefront. No matter how big or small, events like these have such positive and meaningful impact on the competitors, the spectators, and our community at large. Thank you to everyone whose efforts helped make this competition such a success. I encourage any level of involvement you can give, and I look forward to attending and participating in future STEM events throughout our district.
Excellent. Any other reports? Okay, great. So now we'll move on to the first public comment section on the agenda. And what we've done this month and we'll continue to do going forward is laid out the ground rules and the written agenda itself as to public comment. But since this is the first meeting that we've done that, and to continue with our tradition, if there is public comment on the first agenda, on the first, this section that deals with agenda items, I'll discuss them. But just so we're clear, this is only comment on things that are within this agenda. The public comment on off agenda items is later on in the meeting. But if there are any commenters on things related to the agenda, you can feel free to take the microphone after I make a motion. Can I get a motion to open public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Going once, going twice. All right. Can I get a motion to close public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have Roman numeral 8, reports to the board, which includes items 1 through 5 as set forth in the agenda. May I get a motion to approve all those items, please? Second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Next, Roman numeral 9, 9A, regarding the 2023 to 2024 school calendar. May I get a motion for approval of the calendar, please?
So move. Second. Jinx.
Any comments or questions?
Let's have a quick comment. I mentioned it in my minutes, but just again, to commend the administration. I know Dr. Benton, you were working on this from the previous administration through now. I think it's wonderful that we were able to amend the calendar to be more inclusive and representative of other people's holidays, other religions' holidays. So thank you for all the efforts on that.
Just not to be remiss, Mick, I appreciate the congratulations of the work of our group, but you heard me mention collaborative spirit before, and I want to thank all the members of the calendar committee who also worked with us and developed this calendar for approval for this evening. So thank you to all.
And then just to build back on top of that, there was a very vocal and helpful and committed parent group that came and met with us and helped explain the issue. And so that was also appreciated. It's a great community effort.
Really quickly, I've sat on that committee previous years as president of Home and School, and it is a bear. And it is shocking how difficult it is to manage that calendar and get everything in and satisfy all the requirements. And I'm very appreciative of the work that every calendar committee does every year, because it is awful. So thank you. And it's great that we did include those holidays.
All right. All in favor to approve the calendar?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you. Next, policies and procedures. We have 2 items under section 9B. Can I get a motion, please, for approval of those items? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Next, letter C, we have 4 items for approval as set forth in the agenda. Can I get a motion for approval of those items, please?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any noes or abstentions? Letter D has 12 items on it. And item D10 is the purchase agreement as amended, as discussed in executive. Can I get a motion for approval of items 1 to 12?
So second.
Any comments or questions? Again, Mick had mentioned the donations set forth in item 2 from the MEA, Dick's Sporting Goods, the MEF, and a number of sponsors for the science fair, including Power Engineers, Yard Science, 2S2 Communications, and Home and School. That's a reminder that the science fair is on the 29th in the evening, I believe. So if you have an opportunity to get out there and check it out or participate and wow us with some of your scientific acumen, that would be great. But I did want to reiterate the thanks for those very, very helpful and generous donations. So all in favor for items 1 through 12?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? No. Right, we're good? Letter E, employee relations, has 12 items, and this one is a roll call vote. But first, could we get a motion for approval of those items?
So moved.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Oh, of course, I knew that.
Mrs. Arcaro Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Fowles Macaluso,
Yes.
Dr. Myatt,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Morano,
Yes.
Mr. Romano, Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Mrs. McCopolis, Mr. Villanueva.
Yes.
Thank you.
Roman 10 items. Item A relates to suspensions, and item B relates to the superintendent's HIB report that we reviewed last month in executive. Could I get a motion for approval of those 2 items, please? Okay. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Okay. Next is informational only that lists our current enrollment as compared to last year. Is there any old new business? I mean, I'm sorry, that didn't make any sense. Is there any old business? Hearing none. Any new business? Okay, hearing none. We'll now move to the second public comment section, and this is for public comment regarding items that are not necessarily included on tonight's agenda. And as I said, the ground rules are set forth in the agenda itself, but please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Of course, please be cordial and respectful of everybody here. With that, John, are you going to be keeping the timer? Okay. Gotcha. Okay, can I get a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And one thing I failed to mention is if you could please state your name and address, as much as your address as you're comfortable sharing publicly. Please do that before you begin your comments. All right. Hold on. One. I think is the microphone on?
She's working on it right now.
Oh, okay.
You want to test it?
Yes, testing 1, 2. I can hear.
Okay. As long as.
Did somebody turn it off on the hand?
I can project.
It's so people streaming can hear you.
This won't count against your time.
Should we just use one of these?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
Live theater. Okay. Hello, I'm Sarah Ginter. I live on Summers Ave in Morristown. I teach at the upper elementary school, and I would like to truly commend the high school staff for all of the work that they have done preparing for Cinderella, our spring musical. The staff devotes countless hours to make sure that the stage, makeup, costumes, everything is perfection, as well as the time devoted to prepare the students for the production. I would also like to recognize the very hardworking custodial staff at the high school, Dave, Mike, John, and Liz, for keeping the areas clean and safe. Break a leg, Cinderella.
Hey guys, I'm Rosemary Anderson. I live at 290 Crescent Ave. For those of you who don't know, that's Roberts Elementary. This is Sally Wilson. I teach first grade. She's a para. So we're here to quickly talk about the garden sign that you briefly mentioned, donated by the MEA. I want to give a quick background on the garden because we do a lot of really good work at the garden. So the Roberts Garden Beds were originally built and donated by Live Civilly around a decade ago. After years of not being utilized to their best potential in 2015, Sally Wilson decided to use her own gardening skills to improve the students' experience. At first, the students just began to get experience on planting and harvesting. And within that first year, the garden kind of like started to see a purpose. So using the connection that the school has with the First Baptist Food Pantry through Food for All Fridays, we decided to start donating the harvest that we were getting, which is awesome. So students would plant in the spring. Sally took all of her own personal time, set up a weekly calendar where families could sign up for a week to water. And then at the end of the week, this is through the summer, harvest vegetables and then take them to the food pantry so that the local families who were using the food pantry were actually getting fresh produce. And then come September, the students would take over, harvest again, and then the garden would be broken down in the fall, completely maintained by staff and students. I can't tell you how many times Sally has brought dump loads of soil with her own truck. In the morning, you see her there at 7:30 in the morning, got to get this ready, got to have the kids plant tomatoes today. So I have like tons of pictures that I'm going to share with Joe, and hopefully Jeff can share out to you guys too. In May of 2022, the Morristown Sun did an article on us, and it was called "You're Part of Something Bigger." And Sally wanted to just kind of, come on, show and talk a little bit about the progression of the sign and how we ended up where we are today.
So we wanted to say thanks to the MEA for our sign, but just as Rosemary said, we started out with a sign made with paper, covered with laminating film provided by you. And then it progressed to a family in town at our school, the Zoni family, and they just spontaneously on their own donated this sign, and it needs some buffing up. But then the MEA, we filled out grant money and we got a sign, and it's at our school.
So,
and it's going to be put up, and it's going to be great. So.
And then it's STEM week. We're having a local South Jersey farm, Swayze Farms, is going to come out, and they're going to do a nice segment paid for by Women's School, a nice assembly for the kids out at the garden and talk about pollinators. We've since then planted 3 pollinator beds. Again, Sally went out and tilled on her own time. So it's really transformed, and I think the garden sign, a lot of the bench and things like that have changed the space. So
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as much as we want to keep hearing about it, we have to be consistent in our 3-minute clock. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Nissen. I live at 409 Dawson, and I teach special education at the high school. I would like to commend the UES staff and students who just finished celebrating Kindness Week. During the week, many activities and lessons were organized by the guidance counselors at the UES. Kindness ambassadors were chosen by the homeroom teachers. These students worked on guidance with the guidance counselors to learn how to be student leaders for the week. They created inspirational posters that were hung in the cafeteria and even starred in a video that was shared during the guidance lessons with each respective grade level. All of the students in the school decorated hot beverage sleeves with pictures and phrases of kindness, which starting this Friday, you will be able to purchase with a hot beverage at Wawa on Main Street. They also contributed donations for Meals on Wheels program. So we just want to thank the UES staff for all they do for our students.
Thank you.
It's probably better if I don't use a microphone. So I'm Glenn Furman. I teach at the UES. I'm here to commend the Baker staff, where they will be celebrating National Reading Month with their 4th annual One School, One Book program. Each Baker family will receive a copy of Zoe and Sassafras, Unicorns and Germs. Baker teachers were recorded reading chapters of the book out loud each night. The link to the reading will be released to parents to share with their children. Teachers will revisit each chapter on the next school day and provide follow-up vocabulary and comprehension activities. Children enjoyed creating their own unicorns for the bulletin board display in the main hall. The entire Baker staff made this a wonderful event for the entire school.
Hi, Allison Simpson, 132 Chestnut Street. Thank you all for your service for advocating for our kids and for our community. As a parent of 3 students in our wonderful school district, I'm here to ask for your support to reinstate an important program that was cut in 2009, the Winter Track and Field program at Morrison High School. Here are the top 10 reasons why we should bring back winter track and field. Number 10, it's an inclusive sport that virtually any student can participate in. There's no sitting on the sidelines, no cuts. All body types and abilities are welcome. Be it a runner or a shot putter, track and field is so inclusive that it's one of the 3 unified sports offered at our school. Number 9, it's an in-demand sport. We have 100 students in our spring track program and 55 on the cross-country team. Last year, there were 125 students in spring track and field at WHAM, so the pipeline is strong. For the last 5 years of this program, when it existed at MHS, leading up to 2009, Mr. Seibel provided me with a stat that there were about 50 to 60 athletes on the team every year. Number 8, this program serves as a bridge sport to help both track and non-track athletes stay in shape between fall and spring sports, such as soccer and lacrosse. For example, one of the MHS students that competed this winter, a month ago, in winter track sectionals is a lacrosse player at our school. He runs track in the winter to get ready for lacrosse. Number 7, not having a winter track program is a direct disadvantage to our athletes because our competitors all have this program. They have momentum coming into the spring track season. We're playing catch up with our physical and mental fitness. Number 6, winter track has a positive impact on mental health, reducing cases of seasonal depression among students. It's the only winter sport that trains outdoors in the fresh air. Number 5, track is the best of both worlds, a team and individual sport rolled into one. There's team camaraderie along with athletes setting personal goals. I've heard our track coaches state that their mission is not to have every athlete be number 1, but to have them set a goal, be challenged, and achieve their personal best. These are skills that prepare them for life. Number 4, per the new policy of the NJSIAA, our athletes will no longer be able to participate in the coveted winter sectionals and states meets. We had Dom up here talking tonight about wrestling, swimming. They're going to states. They're doing all these wonderful things. Our track athletes in the winter do not have the ability to do that because without a winter track program, we're not eligible. This policy change is heartbreaking news for our athletes, and all other sports at our high school have the ability to advance. Number 3, we're ready. We have a track. We have uniforms. We have equipment from spring track. The expenses that need to be covered are 2 coaches' salaries, bus transportation of 4 meets, and meet entry fees. I've outlined the cost in an email I sent to the Board of Education members. It's in a handout the audience has. Number two, we're the only
I'm
public
so
school.
sorry. I'm so sorry, but we do need to be
Okay,
consistent in our
sorry, I thought I
application.
had timed it with 3 minutes.
That's okay.
Thank
I
you.
see
Thank you for
Pete
your
in the
time.
back and maybe he can finish it. Thank you. And I just want to say again, we have our ground rules and we have to be consistent in how we apply them because we don't want to allow certain subjects to be discussed over the time limit, but not others. So thank you again for all your comments. But I just wanted to make clear that we're not trying to be difficult, but we do have to keep it to 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Kelly Gartland. I'm at 350 Bridgeboro Road. I teach at the high school, and I would like to commend Laura DeShong at Roberts for her Sweetheart Sing first grade concert. Love was in the air. The children sang and danced to songs about friendship, love, and joy. I'd also like to commend the Roberts staff and kindergartners for celebrating their first 100 days of learning. They wore shirts with 100 items on them, and they brought in jars and bottles filled with 100 items to practice counting to 100. I'd lastly like to commend the Roberts staff for their work throughout the month, having different classes and students do research and present their Black History reports. It's been very informative and inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Bridget Potts. I work at 290 Crescent Avenue, Roberts School. I'm here to commend the WAM staff. Update, good news from WAMS. Boop, boop, boop. Here's the bulletin. Throughout the month of February, teachers are building in mini lessons to highlight the impact African Americans have had on our content areas. We are emphasizing that there is a voice and a role model for each of us to follow into our futures. WAM staff is also looking forward to the Addams Family Musical, which will be March 16th to the 19th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kim Martin, and I teach here at WAMS. And I want to commend and thank the South Valley staff for collecting food and donations for the local food pantry and the Burlington County Animal Shelter. They also donated to Mothers Matters, organizing toiletry drives for this charity that supports the Ronald McDonald Houses and the local women's shelters. Additionally, I want to thank the art teacher who teamed up with the third grade team for an art science integration project. The students explored with magnet forces and to paint masterpieces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Peter Simpson, 132 Chestnut Street. To finish on my mom's points, number 2, we are the only public school in our athletic conference, the Olympic Conference, that does not have a winter track and field team. Additionally, at least 50 public schools in South Jersey have a winter track program. The list is provided in the handout. And the number one reason to bring back winter track and field is the student athletes. There are many in this room tonight, and we hope that you find their stories as inspiring as we do. And I encourage you to take action and bring winter track and field back to Morristown High School. Hi, my name is Peter Simpson. I was privileged enough to run in sectionals this winter alongside several of my teammates, many of which are standing in this room. I'm speaking on behalf of everyone when I say we were disappointed by the level of competition Morristown High School allowed our athletes to run at this winter. Without a winter track program, we were left at huge disadvantage. As track athletes in Morristown, we are relying on the school's program. When the school falls short, our athletes are left behind with it. Many of us are competitive as athletes, but cannot compete at all with the new NJSIAA unattached running policy. We as athletes would like to see an official winter track program where we are given a fair opportunity to compete. We're not asking for a lot. As many of you would be surprised to know, Morristown High School is the only school in the Olympic Conference out of 53 schools that have winter track. We'd like to see a winter track team next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Lawfer. I'm a junior at Morristown High School and I live on 109 South Stanwick Road. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak today. I'm here because I realize not having a winter track team is putting us at a disadvantage compared to our peers at other schools. I'm extremely lucky that my parents were able to get me a trainer this year and that I was able to compete in winter sectionals, but next year this won't be the case because we won't have a team and seed times to be eligible. In previous years, me and my teammates have been going up against girls in the spring who have been training year-round and are months ahead of us, since we are the only school in our conference without a winter team. After taking the winter off, we are starting from the beginning and only reaching our peak at the very end of the spring season. I feel like winter track is a necessity for all runners, especially those who want to obtain scholarships or financial aid for colleges. Another benefit is that it keeps anyone who wants to be in shape for other spring sports such as lacrosse or baseball. This is also important during the winter months when seasonal depression is in full swing for many, and running with a team provides both a physical and mental outlet. Plus, it keeps us off our phones. Other winter sports are very specialized, yet anyone can run. I want to take this time to thank the Board of Education for considering this, and thank you for all that you do for us.
Hi, my name is Julia Brock, and I live at 617 South Saratoga Drive. I'm a junior at Morristown High School, and I'm involved with the track and cross-country teams. This past winter training season has been rough, especially training by myself without my team. It was so hard mentally comparing myself with comparing my running times with other girls my age who had winter track programs and trained with a coach and a team 6 days a week. Originally, me and some of the other girls weren't allowed to compete in the winter track sectionals, but after looking over rules and regulations and talking to the AD, we were allowed to compete, but without seed times. This put us at a huge disadvantage, and it made it almost impossible for us to make it to states. At sectionals, no Morristown runners, with the exception of our one pole vaulter, qualified for states, but we all knew that if we had a winter track program, seed times, and proper training, we all would have had a strong chance of qualifying. Personally, I'm looking to further my career at running and compete competitively in college. Having a winter track program will help not only me, but others progress further and prepare us even more for the outdoor season and for future college. I believe that a winter track program is a necessity not only for the times and for the training, but the community. All the girls that compete in Morristown track are amazing, and it is such a supportive environment that I wish I had during my winter training this winter. Overall, I just want to thank the school board for listening to us tonight and hopefully giving us your support for a high school winter track program. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Raghav Akula at 2 Melissa Court, Morristown, New Jersey. I'm a senior over at MHS and about to enter into my fourth and final year as part of the track and field program as a sprinter and high jumper. Now, yes, I am too short to be a high jumper, but I am pretty stubborn. People have also told me that my gait is more akin to a distance runner, but I try sprinting anyway. And I always thought that, me trying to force myself to do all these things that I probably shouldn't makes me more prone to injuries. I haven't gone a single year in track and field without debilitating shin splints on top of other things. But then I start looking around and I realize I'm not alone. At one point last year on the boys sprinting team, over half of our sprinting team has to be sitting out because of various types of injuries. There are all sorts of tics and minor ailments that's afflicting our track team, from muscle cramps to shin splints to pulled joints. And the thing with all of these injuries is they're stress injuries, right? Especially with shin splints, we're putting a lot of stress on our bodies in a very short period of time. And if you look at our schedule, you see why. Between our first practice and our first scrimmage, we have about 2 weeks to prepare. Compare that to every single one of our competitors. They all have well over 2 months to prepare. That's because they have their own winter track programs, and that's something that we lack. They start their practice in December, and they are entering into their first big spring season track meets in March. We have our first practice in March, and we're entering into our first meets in March. That's putting us at a very, very big disadvantage every single year against every team we face all season long. Now, with a winter track program, there is more than enough enthusiasm for that program to be successful. Like previous speakers said, there are hundreds of athletes in the women's track and field program that are ready to fill it. And Morristown MHS students are ready to make the winter track and field program successful as well. We just need that enthusiasm to be mutual. And there are essentially two things right now that can help with our scourge of minor injuries and unpreparedness for the season. One is hydration. I don't think we drink enough. I really think that's an issue. I think we need to drink more, but that's on us. The second thing is something we need to do together is we need to reestablish that winter track and field program that was cut almost 2 decades ago. That's something that can really help us in terms of preparedness, help us be able to compete against all the competitors, because as a team, there's so much potential on the team, both as individuals and as a team as a whole. But without adequate preparedness, we're desiccating our potential and we're constraining our possibilities. So to deal with the scourge, we need that winter track program. That's something you can and should do, because Morristown students are ready and willing to make it worth it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Evan Schaefer. I'm at Windermere Drive in Morristown, and I'm a senior at Morristown High School. This year, I had the privilege of being a team captain of the cross-country team in the fall season, and I'd just like to present and ask you to consider a few more subjective benefits of having a winter track and field program. Quite frankly, in the past few years, between the fall cross-country season and the spring track season, I slack off. The winter it's hard without a systemic incentive to go out there and run in the cold by yourself without any races that you're looking forward to. And often I was faced with when I got to track season, like an athletic dip off as soon as I started. So one thing that this sort of idea sort of led me to was an overall idea of the essence of running and the essence of running with a sport and being on a team. Running for me personally has allowed me to gain a deeper understanding of what it means to have a strong mental fortitude. It has allowed me to rise above my own personal interests, to care for something greater than myself, whether it's a cross-country team or a track team. And one thing that I noticed that I was personally affected by, and I felt within the community of the high school, was just a simple desire with the COVID pandemic to just take the easy way out. And what cross-country really did for me and track did for me was show me that I don't always have to take the easy way out. It encouraged me to do things that were a little more difficult, a little out of my comfort zone. And I was fortunate enough to be able to see that effect within my colleagues on the cross-country team. And it was truly fulfilling and empowering to see just how much they had changed. So I just ask you to consider winter track and field program would be incredibly beneficial, apart from the objective benefits, but also subjectively for the character and student life of our committee. Thank you for your time.
Colin Shan, 752 Paddock Path. I'm a senior at MHS, and I'm a captain of both the cross-country and track and field team. I've been competing on the teams for the past 4 years at MHS, and I'm now committed to run Division I cross-country at Fairfield University. And the absence of a winter track program really put us at a disadvantage over every other school and team. We have less times, races, training, and just a harder time during the recruiting process than every other school. So therefore, a winter track program would significantly benefit us at MHS.
Hi, my name is Nathan Rivera, and I'm an 8th grader here at William Allen. I currently participate in a club winter track program with some of these amazing high school athletes, and I've learned so much from them. They've helped me become a better runner and teammate, and I really look up to them. Although it doesn't impact me yet, I've witnessed firsthand the struggles they have endured to make it to sectionals earlier this year. It's really discouraging to think that all their hard work and dedication was almost irrelevant due to the rules and regulations associated with competing at sectionals. A school-sponsored winter track program will provide our students with a fair opportunity for competition. Our current 8th grade class also has some really talented runners who will surely be contributing to a bright future for Morristown track and field. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening, Sarah Rivera, 105 Smith Court. As you can tell, I'm here to speak on behalf of the winter track program as well. I'm going to focus on the mental health aspect of this. We've all experienced some form of seasonal depression in our lives. We go to work when it's dark, we get home when it's dark, and in between we spend those hours stressed about the work we need to accomplish. Our students are no different. Seasonal depression, or a lesser form called the winter blues, affects your daily life. I'm certainly not a doctor. In fact, I don't even think I have Band-Aids in my house right now. But according to the Cleveland Clinic, symptoms include sadness, anxiety, weight gain, fatigue, trouble concentrating, feelings of hopelessness, sleep problems, and in extreme cases, thoughts of suicide. Also, according to the Cleveland Clinic, there are a few ways to prevent seasonal depression. The three main preventative techniques are spending time outside every day, even if it's cloudy. Daylight is proven to help you feel better. Number two is exercise. Try to get 30 minutes of exercise at least 3 times a week. Exercise is proven to reduce stress and anxiety. And number three, to see friends. Staying involved with a social circle and participating in regular activities can provide support during the winter months. As amazing as it would be for our athletes to win state track championships, I think it would be even more amazing to have an activity that would improve the mental health of students during their most vulnerable time of year. And I think I have another second or two, and I just want to give a shout out to Mrs. Ginter from the UES, who is the director of Seussical Junior. And I know everybody's talking about theater, and my middle son is in the musical, and it's amazing. So come see that as well at the end of March. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ava. I live on Oak Street, and I'm a sophomore at MHS. I ran spring track last year and will continue again in around 3 weeks at the start of our next season. To add on to my teammates, I want to point out the positive impact that track has made in our high school experiences. We have heavy workloads and can all say that track has allowed us to de-stress and has brought a group of dedicated athletes together. Along with some teammates, I've been running this winter without coaching, a sharp contrast to other schools in our Olympic conference. We want the opportunity to progress as an organized team during the winter, and we really appreciate your dedication to our town and school, and thank you for your time.
Excuse me, Aaron Birdleitner, 816 North Stanwick Road, right across the street. I'll just be walking home after this. Can we first please give a round of applause to all the students and student athletes for taking their time to be here and having the fortitude to speak in front of all these adults and express themselves and really try to bring light to something that, believe it or not, affects many, many folks in Morristown. Morristown has a history of sports that weren't there that eventually had a big impact. Boys lacrosse is one. When Will American founded boys lacrosse in 1987 in Morristown, it created opportunities for literally hundreds and hundreds of boys and young men in Morristown that did not exist before. And it's just an incredible history there. But it wasn't easy, right? It took cooperation from those who were empowered to provide opportunities. So these folks are coming to you to ask you to please consider their thoughts and consider their interests and please act upon them to return winter track to Morristown for both boys and girls. I wanted to mention that the class of 1973 was mentioned earlier, 50th reunion. We wanted to give them a tour and really recognize them. I'll note for you that the class of 1973 had a winter track program at Morristown High School. In addition, I would just like to say that what would be ideal in the spirit of what Mr. Bollendorf mentioned earlier about collaboration in Morristown, which can be such a wonderful and powerful thing, is that the board think about not whether or not winter track can be reinstated, but just simply how can it be reinstated? Okay, just think of not, oh, should we do this, should we not? Let's think about doing it and how we can constructively do it. You have a lot of supporters, whether it's financial, whatever the interest or shortfalls are. The town has a lot of folks that would love to help out and make things work here. So please return winter track to Morristown High School.
Hi, Dave Simpson, 132 Chestnut Street. I'm coming here today speaking to you as a person entering their 28th year in the field of education. Over the last 7 or 8 years, I've seen a sharp decline in the mental well-being of my students. And I've worked as a teacher, a coach, administrator, and I can say that winter track provides a tremendous opportunity to overcome those hurdles. There's nothing worse than losing a kid to depression, losing a kid to anxiety. And we know that the winter track program will help with that. Most importantly, when these kids are competing in track, their phones are away. They're out there running long distances with each other, forging meaningful relationships with each other. We know that many of our young folks think that they have a lot of friends, but unfortunately, a lot of these are shallow online connections and friendships. They're lacking deep, substantial connection. Providing a track program in the winter is going to allow those kids to forge those deeper relationships that will help solidify their mental health. And I ask you to reinstate this program for the mental well-being of our students. Thank you.
Another track guy. I'm Bert Tetro. I'm in Morristown. I've got 3 kids still in district, 2 who have gone all the way through college. And they've been able to successfully compete for college spots and have learned life lessons along the way, thanks in large part to strong and robust winter track programs. That's how myself and my 2 oldest children were all introduced to track through winter track. So over those 40 years of experience, either as an athlete myself or as a parent or simply as a spectator, I've spent a lot of time around track athletes, and the advantages of athletics, there's no question. A lot of studies that support the studies documenting the benefits of athletics for students. Winter track in particular provides a gateway to athletics that wouldn't be available to a lot of kids who might not otherwise find their way onto a basketball team or a wrestling team or a gymnastics team. So this is a way for them to fall in love with athletics and reap those benefits. The NCAA reports that there are more women participating in track by far than any other NCAA sport. With men, it's close. Football, believe it or not, and baseball, it's neck and neck. But track is right up there. Let's see. With the high rates of participation and Morristown's historically rich history of track, and the fact that all the schools in our conference with whom our students are competing for college spots, our students are disadvantaged by not being able to include their performances from winter track on their college application. So I'd like to see that happen. Let's see. We have the infrastructure in place. I think what we need to consider is really the relatively small investment that the winter track program would take would reap enormous benefits with lots of participation. And lastly, I'm sorry. With my kids still in the pipeline, I'd like them to have the opportunity to participate in winter track as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jaya Stockham. I live on Canterbury Court, and I'm a sophomore at MHS. Even though I was not able to compete in winter sectionals this year, obviously, I participated in spring track as a pole vaulter. During this time in between spring and up to my injury, I was looking to improve my skills as an athlete. I had to travel over 3 hours every weekend to get a high intensity training that I was getting at MHS during the spring. Other athletes at so many schools around us got the training and coaching that they deserved during the winter. Me and the other athletes that compete in spring are up against some of the best athletes in South Jersey that have been preparing for the season all winter. This puts us at a strong disadvantage because we are lacking this training. This is why I think that at Morristown, we should be on a level playing field to other schools in this area. Thank you for listening to me and the other athletes and parents advocating for winter track and field program.
Anyone else have any public comment? Okay. Thank you. Can I get a motion to close public comment, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Thank you. Next is the good of the order.
Thank you, Mark. First, let me start by, you've heard me say tonight, how impressed I've been, having been here in the district for a month. Tonight, it's just even more evidence. The kids, the way you handled yourself and, came up and the eloquence, particularly the two gentlemen that are seniors that didn't even have any notes. I was just super impressed. But I was even more impressed by the fact that they were seniors and they have nothing to gain by coming here and making their feelings known. I don't think there's anybody on the board that could debate any of the points that were made here tonight. Me personally, I've dedicated my life to athletics, and I understand and agree with the value of scholastic sports. There's a reason why communities and schools have invested in scholastic sports of all kinds, because we all know that they help teach life lessons to our kids. The vast majority of our kids that participate don't go on to make careers in athletics, but it teaches them the very things that they need to do to be successful. So for all the reasons that you stated tonight, there's nobody that can disagree with the need to continue to support scholastic programming for our kids in the way of athletics. So I know that the board has things to think about. It's really more of an exercise of the budget, which is the reason why I know it came out in the first place a long time ago. And none of the folks up here have any historical reference or part of that, because none of them were here doing this work when that occurred. You've given everybody here tremendous things to think about. And I know your timing's good because the budget process is upon us. So thank you for all your words. And I know you've made a very big impression on all of us here tonight. So thank you.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, just something really quick. I just wanted to say that I attended a few events and I just wanted to share. A few of them were mentioned. I just want to give a huge congratulations to the MHS Interact Club. They did a wonderful community event for those of you that were out, the Soup for the Soul event. It was absolutely beautiful to see the community come out and all the local sponsors and partners and collaborating with Phil Abundance. The Thexpo and Greg Haar's MHS staff did a phenomenal job partnering with other local high schools and our own UES to put on amazing performances. If those of you that I would urge you to go see MHS's Cinderella, and also next month UES's Seussical Junior. My son is in Seussical Junior, so we're very excited in our household. And last but not least, I had the honor of attending the New Jersey School Boards Association's training session in Plainsboro, New Jersey, and I met a lot of other local board members across New Jersey. It was a great session, deep conversations and brainstorming sessions with other districts. And I learned a lot of really great, robust information. And it was a very, very intensive training. It was very exciting. And I just want to thank the NJSB for the retreat. And that is all I have. So thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Yep, just me. I just wanted to take a second to thank everybody for coming out and sharing your views with us and offering perspectives that we may not have otherwise had tonight. I think that there was a lot to unpack at this particular board meeting. And I, just for myself, I want the public to understand that we feel a burden to, as we should, to make all of this right, to unpack all of this, to look at Dr. Benton's report and really consider that, and to really consider reinstating track and field. And I think to this, in this regard, I think I could speak on behalf of the board and say that we are very dedicated to doing the best for the community that we can. And thank you again for coming out and spending your night with us.
Anyone else? I see your green light on, Mick. Are you good?
Yeah, I don't want to just, I did write back to one of the people supporting the track and field, Ms. Simpson, Allison, good to see you. And I participated in winter track. Other board members here participated in winter track here in Morristown. And to the person who mentioned that it was here in 73, it was here in 88 when I graduated. And Lauren graduated after, so I'll let her tell you what year that was if she wants to. But yeah, it definitely is something. I know how much I got out of it. We were reminiscing a little bit before about our coach, Mr. Brudnicki, who was not only a stellar math teacher, but a great mentor and advocate when we were participating as athletes. So, you know, as Mr. Bollendorf said, it's certainly not an issue of not having the desire to want it, to have it. It's a matter of figuring out how to do it. And certainly I know as a board, we'll definitely take a look at that. And I know I can speak for myself. I would love to be able to find a way to do it. And certainly thank everybody for coming out and not only reminding us of the importance of it and the effect it has, because that's really the key thing, is the effect it has on our students, but also giving us a chance to remember what it was like for us. So those of us who were students here before. So thanks for that.
Right. I don't see any other green lights on, so I assume nobody else has any more comments for the good of the order. So I echo everybody's thanks. I'm not gonna repeat what's been set up here. Thank you all for showing up. It's been great to hear your perspectives and certainly lots to think about. So thank you for your advocacy and all your constructive comments. And so with that, I'll make a motion to close or adjourn. I'm sorry, a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.